Welcome to Pause for the Truth, where you can sit back, relax, and hear an honest dialogue about health, wealth, legal, and social issues. The hosts are Dr. Rogers Kane, family practice physician, and Jocelyn Turner, health education consultant, with co hosts from the Northeast Florida Medical Society and its foundation. Stay tuned for the truth about matters affecting you and your family. We're here to tell you what's really going on and why. Good evening, and welcome to Pause for the Truth. I am your co host, Jocelyn Turner. So delighted that you all are joining us this evening. For those of you who are returning guests, thank you as always for joining us. If this is your first time, welcome. We promise to enlighten you on a great topic tonight with some wonderful speakers, which we'll get to in a moment. But first, of course, without further ado, I always have to bring in my co host, Dr. Rogers Kane. How are you doing this evening, Dr. Kane?
I am doing great, Ms. Turner. Happy to be here and happy to have this subject matter being addressed. And so let's get to it.
Absolutely. This evening, we are delighted to have Mr. George Maxey and Mr. Gerard Bell, and they are both involved with Operation Save Our Sons. And so I kind of stole from the title of the name of their organization as I placed it on the flyer and just simply said, Save Our Sons. I wanted to say, Please Jesus, but I said, I won't add Please Jesus at the end because I know we're going to have a lively discussion tonight because these gentlemen, I believe, and they'll share with you in a moment, that this organization came about as a result of their pastor, as I'm sure that they will learn tonight. How are you doing tonight? I'm going to start with who I know, of course, because that's what we do, and that is George Maxey. How are you doing this evening, George?
Doing well, man. I'm doing extremely well. Thank you for the invitation to be on tonight.
Poor George, he and I were at a conference and I accosted him, put him on the spot. And apparently I have that kind of pressure on people because he didn't even think about it. He just said, okay, and gave me a date.
Absolutely.
But see, he decided to share the wealth and immediately volunteered Gerard Bell to join him on the show. How are you doing this evening, Gerard?
I'm great. You're absolutely right. That's what he did. He voluntold me is what he did.
Violent told you. That's good.
Well, listen, as we welcome to both of you, and we're gonna give you a chance to talk about your organization. But I want to first read something. As we prepare for every show, we actually do our homework. We obviously we can hear and know if watching the news. Heck, living in America, we hear what's going on when it comes to our sons. And by the way, when I say save our sons, I am speaking of, so that no one will be unclear, I am speaking of African American males here, is who I'm speaking of anyway. Now, you all may think of somebody different, but let me read this line from an article I read on Brookings. It said, to be male, poor, and either African American or Native American is to confront on a daily basis a deeply held racism that exists in every social institution. No other demographic group has fared as badly, so persistently, and for so long. To meet this appalling crisis, this particular person says it calls for nothing less than a new deal for Black men. So tell me, and either one of you can answer the question, tell us about Operation Save Our Sons.
Okay, I will start off with that. Operation Save Our Sons came out of the vision, passion, and love that our Bishop John Eric Guns has for our community, for our boys. It came about during the time of Trayvon Martin, the killing of Trayvon Martin. And I put that, heavily, the killing of Trayvon Martin. And he just had this passion in his heart that he wanted to do something. So from deep prayer and speaking to God, he came up with Operation Save Our Sons, where we had our first summit 10 years ago at Jean Ribault High School. We had over 1,500 young people, young men, come together at the gym at Jean Ribault High School. And at that time, Bishop did it with, what was it, $2,000 with all these men. And but he was able to feed them, bring them together to Jean Ribault, and then from there it just carried on from year to year. Us really trying to truly work with individuals and host summits and show these African American males specifically that they are of value and that we care about them and that we love them.
And Gerard, how did you get involved in this initiative? Thank you, George.
Basically, I attend St. Paul. I am one of the elders at the church, and I wanted to, when I joined as a member about 6 years ago, I wanted to be involved. I mean, you know, saving our children, our sons are so important, vitally important. I umpired baseball, coached basketball, I coached football. So being out there with them, you know, that gave me a sense of something I needed to do. And then also I have my own boys that I do my best to save. So it was a no-brainer, excuse me, being with Bishop Guns and his passion for our youth and really our city and country. It's just a no-brainer. I had to get involved.
So what are you both hearing from young men? Dr. Kane and I over the years were involved with the Man Up for Health Summit from the onset over 15 years ago. And I'll tell you before you answer the question, just to give you a little quick background on that. The first year, the summit was just for men because our focus was on men's health. But the men said to us immediately, we need to get our boys involved. We need for our boys to see positive things happening with Black men, all coming together, no confusion, no fussing, no fighting, just men there just to learn and to help themselves. And so from that point forward, we started the Man Up for Health Summit for men and boys. And quite frankly, we had an age limit, as I'm sure you do, and I'll get to that in a moment. But no matter what year, even though we said for 12 and up, I tell you, those moms were bringing those little 8, 9, 7, 6-year-olds. What's the age range for the young men involved in your programs?
Well, we work with students from kindergarten through 12th grade, and Brother Bell does an outstanding job going to the elementary schools. We're in 5 of the high schools around the city. And so we try our best. We've evolved from having, let's say, a summit a year to now truly being in schools and creating a mentoring process with the students, you know, every day. So it's not just the fact of us having this one major event per year, but what does it look like in regards to inserting ourselves in children's lives early and often?
Are you the group that showed up? And if it's not you, I'm sorry, but if it is you, I'm going to applaud you on the first day of school and just kind of, you know, clapping the hands of the kids as they were walking in?
Yes.
Yes. That was us.
Yes.
Why'd you do that? Why'd you think that was important?
I felt like, well, we did collaboratively felt like it was important for them to see Black men doing that, applauding them, wanting them to do great. That was one of our instructions when we touched their hands and gave them high fives and things of that nature. We believe in you. You matter. You are great. Have a great school year. You know, that's what we wanted to instill in them. And the day that we did that, we were dapping everybody up. It just wasn't the young African-American males. It was just everybody who came into the building that you matter. It doesn't matter what your race is. You matter to somebody. And we just wanted you to have an amazing school year.
So since you've been around since, you know, for 10 years now, I imagine that you may have had some young men who were a part of the program, and I'll call it a program. So for your initiative 10 years ago, have you seen anybody to graduate from the program and maybe come back or at least offer? I was looking on your website and it says that, you know, your primary goal is to educate our future leaders. You intend to increase promotion and graduation rates. So have you seen a positive difference in terms of the number of young men who are graduating from high school and perhaps thinking about furthering their education beyond high school?
Yes. And one of the things that we've been doing is we work closely with Duval County Public Schools. We work closely with the two charter schools that we're at, which is Lone Star Academy and also KIPP High School, Bold City. And we work closely with those administrators in those schools and really try to identify students that they feel that are on the verge of not doing well. What do I mean by that? In the areas of attendance, in the areas of grades, in the areas of behavior. So we try to identify those students and build relationships with them, and just not just be that typical mentoring program, but be a program that we're trying to create destiny and show them that you do have value, but more importantly, your value means something to our community. What does it mean to generate that level of wealth? Wealth financially, wealth spiritually, wealth physically.
So unfortunately, there's a dark side of when we talk about young Black boys and not just boys, but young Black men in general. And when I say the dark side, it is unfortunately turning on the news, turning on the radio, popping up on our social media platforms that another Black male was shot. You know, we had a recent sheriff's race. We have a new sheriff in town, and unfortunately, Jacksonville is, you know, has been labeled by some to be a gang. I won't say infested, but I can't think of another word to say. So, are you hearing from young men that they are being approached to be in gangs, or, you know, why do you think that they? You know, what are you hearing from young men about trying to do the right thing but being swayed to do differently? Anything?
I have a couple of young men that are at my school, at a couple of the schools that I talk to, and one of them mainly just said for protection. Honestly, they feel like they need that protection. It's not that they're not getting it at home, but at the same time, you know, they fear just walking down the street to the store with their little sister and being shot at. And so with the protection around them, they feel more safe. So that's why they are, you know, more affiliated with the gang. So I asked, I just flat out asked. So if you moved, if your home was moved, or, you know, if your mother was able to move, would you still be affiliated with the gang? Do you feel like, you know, those ties are so strong? And he adamantly said, no, I'm only in the gang because of where I live. And that's what I need to do to survive right now. A great kid, humble kid. And you would never know he was in a gang. I just had that conversation with him and I asked him, and he flat out told me, and I was floored actually, because nothing about him, nothing, the way he dressed, the way he talks, nothing academically, nothing about him says gang. But he was in a gang, and the administrator, she confirmed it, because I was like, he said he's in a gang, but he doesn't. She confirmed it, and I was just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
Wow.
And some, if I may add one also, Jocelyn, is that, you know, environment plays a major role. You know, sometimes we say to ourselves that, you know, why would you do that? But we can't see things through our own personal lenses, but we got to see it through the lenses of those young men. And, you know, survival is about survival.
Right.
And sometimes they just want to feel a sense of being safe and being protected. And when, as a society, when we can't make them feel that way, then they're going to go about it their own way. And it has nothing to do with the parents. I think, you know, you have to get past the blaming game, but it's like, how can we help collectively create an environment of creating hope? You know, when somebody feels hopeless, they have no problem taking another person's life. So that's one of the things that I know Brother Bell does a wonderful job with when he goes into the schools, is how do we create that level of hope into the schools that we're at, working with the young men, showing them that your life does have purpose, and you will live past a year. You will live past 5 years. You will live past 10 years. What does that look like? That's something that Bishop Guns installs in us to really share with them from that perspective.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because I am reminded of a program years ago that I heard about in California that was teaching young people. It was called something about teaching them hope. They didn't feel like they would live beyond age 25. Can you imagine? Because growing up, so you guys are younger than me. Dr. Kane always says he's usually the old one in the group. But I remember as a young person that I'm going to live to be 100, right? And so I can't fathom that some young people just hope that they make it to age 25. If you're just joining us, we're talking about saving our sons. If you have a question for either of our guests, just dial in 1-888-669-1280. Again, we're talking about Save Our Sons. And there's a question that popped up. Are there any programs to increase male teachers in the community that you all
Yes,
know of?
yeah, Jacksonville Public Education Fund has now started a new initiative. They're trying to increase, more male teachers by 2025. I believe it's like 1,000 male teachers that they're shooting for through JPEF. So they're out trying to identify male teachers to be role models to the males because they realize that they need to have more of a male presence. And, that's why, even when we were at Lone Star today for their Thanksgiving dinner, half of the males in the school know Brother Bell. They're going up to him and dapping him. Hey, what's going on? How's things going? It's an instant magnitude where he has created with them. Even though he's been there for maybe a little over a month, but he's already created these strong bonds and relationships with these young men because they're yearning for that. They're yearning for individuals who look like them to show them some things that they may not know and some things they may not be receiving at home too.
So, Gerard, and I hope you're okay with me calling you Gerard, what do you say to a young person when they said, I joined the gang because I needed to feel safe? Did you feel at that point, other than empathy, that, gosh, guys, we need to, and when I say guys, you went back to George and Pastor Gunn and said, we need to work with the sheriff's office to do something about safety in this community. What was your reaction to that?
After the initial shock, especially knowing the young man, the kid, I went and I talked to our chairman as far as if there's a way that we could look into potentially moving this person or getting information to help her move. I understand she is in Section 8 housing or whatever. And I worked in management and property management before. So I reached out to a couple of contacts on the West Side to see if they had anything available. And right now, with the housing market the way that it is, the waiting list for some of these apartments are a year long, believe it or not. And so it's just talking about maybe we can get with the sheriff's department. We are friendly with Lakeisha Burton. Maybe we can get some resources over in the area where he lives that can help not just him, because if it was just him, I'm sure it's at least 8 or 9 more of those kids that live in those apartments that feel like their lives are threatened almost on a daily basis only because of where they live, not because of the activity that they participate in.
You said a few minutes ago, we're not into the blame game, and I'm not even trying to raise an iota of a spectrum toward that. But what you guys experience, what are you seeing as it relates to the Black men being in the household and the same kind of issues being in that household, as opposed to when the father or a male role model is not in the household?
I have, it's interesting that you ask that, because I have a young man that lives in a 2-parent household, and he is as reckless as he wants to be. He has told me that I don't care if I live past 25. And it was heartbreaking simply because I met both of his parents. His parents seem to try and do the best that they can for them. He is actually affluent. It's not like he grew up in poverty. So it was meeting these new young men and interacting with them and trying to understand their lives and the mindsets. I think that's where we have to start at their mindset. Their mentality has to change. And I think parents need to be more involved, because even though he lived in a 2-parent household, they weren't involved with them. They kind of washed their hands, so to speak. I just want them to get an education, get out. That was kind of their attitude at this point. So they have to be more involved. We have to, as parents, we have to be more involved with our children. And as fathers, if you're not at home, you have to put your hands on your sons, not physically, but you have to be able to get with them, talk to them, let them know that, this world owes you nothing. So let me walk you through these things. The world is a minefield, and we got to help them navigate it.
So, and I know that I got the answer to the question as it relates to that family. But what else can we do as a community to start addressing, and if it's not an issue, it's not an issue, but start addressing the male role model within a household? I mean, that's that one family, and I understand where you're coming from, but we have a host of a large number of households that is an issue. How do we, and I know we're not trying to be substitute dads, but how do we as a community try to help address that?
Yeah, and I think one of the things that we try to do more than anything else is we try to address the entire family, not as or try to address the student that we're working with, the male that we're working with, as a unit. So we don't just look at him as just an isolated child, but looking at him as a family unit. So, under the direction of Bishop Guns, we have what is called the Willie Dennis Foundation, where we actually sit down with parents and we focus on things in the areas of health, education, economics, because we know that impacts the psyche of the males that we're dealing with. If they're dealing with a sick mama at home, they're dealing with an unemployed father at home, if they're dealing with the uneducated, whatever that may be at the household, it will take away the focus that we want them to have on in regard to their own personal lives. So in understanding that and realizing that, that's some of the things that we do is look at our nonprofit partners that we work with in collaboration with. So a good example is working with agencies like Unite Us, doing a referral process, sitting with them, assessing them, and assisting with them, realizing that we can't do everything. This is Operation Save Our Sons is not trying to be the magic bullet, because it's not, or the magic pill, whatever you want to call it. We are an agency of men working in conjunction with our community, trying to make our community better, but realize that we have to include our nonprofit partners too, to assist us in that process in making and healing our boys. So what does it look like to sit on a mama's couch, have a courageous conversation, and discuss what are some of the things that you need to show success and sustainability for the sake of your child?
So one of the questions that was posted is, what about mental health evaluation for some of these young men? So since you mentioned, George, that you work with other community-based organizations, do you make referrals? And Gerard, this might be for you as well. Do you make referrals for other resources as they come up as you're dealing with the family, like mental health, for example?
Yes, ma'am. So once I do my one-on-one, because I come in as a group and then I go individually to the boys that are young men, that are in our program, and I have conversation with them. A lot of times I have that conversation with a social worker that is in the school, and we have that conversation. And then when we're done, we kind of assess them. Do you think mental health and advocacy for them will help, and things of that nature? So that is left on the social worker at the school, but we definitely have those conversations, and they have been making appointments from what I understand. I know a couple young men in my group has been to mental health counseling since I've started.
Yeah. And I see our friend has come from behind the scenes. He has two boys, and which are, he's much younger than me. But he has two boys that I'm not going to say he had any difficulty raising, but anytime you deal with boys, sometimes you have some difficulty raising on the surface, because I guess me being a boy, I know what kind of issues I got into, just was blessed enough not to get beat up on it. But Tyrone, you look like you're itching to say something.
Yeah, I mean, there were a couple of things that I heard, and then one was in response to what you said. I think one of the things that often gets sidetracked is the expectation of a man being in the home. That's ideal, but a positive role model has an effect on young men regardless of where they are. If they're going to church and they see men and those men engage with them, those men are positive influences. If they're walking the streets where they are, and the guy who's always pushing a buggy engages with them, one of the things that I have noticed over the last 25 years is the change in society. That's why those questions that came in with regards to what are we doing to have more men in the school? At the time I went to school, there were at least more equal to the amount of men in school teaching as there were as women. When you look at the dynamics of a child, male or female, and they spend 8+ hours at school, then that seems like that is a big area where you can increase the effect of influencing young men.
Well, the one thing that I mean, going back to what you were saying, since you mentioned about the males not being in school, and I understood that our early answer about trying to recruit men into teaching, but you can't go out in the street, pick somebody up, and go to and the next day they're a teacher. So in terms of a long-term planning, that's one thing that if you guys, anybody can address it in terms of how we're recruiting more, especially Black men, into the school system. And then the other thing winds up being the role that the things that you guys are up against, or when I say you guys, that the things that these young men are up against these days are unlike what we were up against. We didn't have this social media as a distraction or as an influencer and so on and so on. But you sometimes, whenever you decide you want to, for lack of a better description, do battle with someone, you got to meet them on the battlefield. Is there anything going on with regards to how to deal with social media and the influences that it has on our young men? I know that's a real big question, real broad question, but if I'm looking for any answers, because that's what we want. We want to do something.
But I think one of the things that we have to do a better job as a community is tell our story. I think the problem that we run into is we allow so many other entities to tell our story on our behalf instead of us telling our own story. So a great example, we had our 10th anniversary summit. And, and that's something that our bishop pushed on us to host. We held it at WJCT. We had 165 young Black males from 13 high schools there. 13 high schools, right? At this summit, 165 of them, right? We had Dr. Lucas from Virginia Union University there. And he asked, how many brothers would like to go to college? Aspirations of going to college. So we had about almost half of them stand up. So you about 65, 70 brothers stand up. I want to go to college. He said, okay, two things I need. Can you be respectful to your parents? And can you be respectful to me? And he said, yeah. And they raised one hand and raised the other hand. So they can be respectful to their parents, be respectful to him. And you know what he said to them? You all have been admitted to my college. Period. Send me an Instagram name. Here goes my IG account. Put me your name, your phone number, your email. You're in my college, and I'm going to give you $2,000 scholarship.
So now, can we
that's
do
powerful. No, what I'm saying is that we got a story like that of that magnitude. But did you see that on the news?
No.
You see what I'm saying? We got to get to a point where we're telling our own story. We just can't rest our morals on. And again, it's no pun to First Coast News of the world or Channel 4 News, but we got to tell our story. We got to use channels like this right here that you have created for us to speak on, to tell our story. We got to build the audience of this podcast. We got to tell our story with the positive things that are going on amongst these males, amongst our females that are going on within our nonprofits. So we just got to be a little more earnest in regards to utilizing social media as a positive tool instead of utilizing social media as a negative tool. What does that look like in regards to our youth? What does it look like in regards to us as a race of people?
You know what, Dr. Kane, hold that thought 1 second. I just have to mention two things. Number one, if you're just joining us, we're talking about saving our sons. If you have a question for our guests, dial in 888-669-1280. George, is so true what you said. When we held Man Up for Health Summit every year, we never got, except for one time when we had local news media as a co-host or moderator for our event. Subsequent years, we never had the news media to show up. I was so angry about it because we had so many Black males present at one event. I almost wanted to call and say there's a fight going on at FSCJ downtown campus, because I knew then that somebody would show up, right?
Yeah.
Even the radio station was there doing a live remote broadcast, and they were like, Jocelyn, how come you all don't have any? I was like, we sent it out. Nobody shows up. It has to be, but if something negative was happening, then people will show up. So that was spot on when you talk about, we have to tell our stories. We can't wait for someone else. Go ahead, Dr. Kane.
Well, I mean, I was just going to concur, with what you just said. The only other thing I was going to ask is I see how hard you guys are working, and we have in the past had other organizations to come on. I heard you guys say more or less elementary school to 12th grade, and then there are some other institutions that step to the next level after the 12th grade. What I'd like to see is a huge partnership, a kind of an association of these various organizations out there that are trying to help our kids. And so that the dollars that do come into what few we get, that do come into the community can be used most effectively, and not someone, not everybody doing the same thing and not having as many participants, and I know that's not easy to be done, but again, I would love to be able to see where, this, let's say Betty Bernie's organization and what she does.
I'm a Star.
And also the Anna B. Ruth Foundation, and also Building Bridges, and all those guys. It's like we need some type of a mafia panel.
Well, to answer your question, but Dr. Kane, we do have that. Okay. It's called the My Village Project. The My Village Project is an organization that houses over 100 Black nonprofits. That means the Greek letter organizations, grassroots nonprofits like ourselves, I'm a Star, the Alphas, all of them. We have an organization of all these entities under the umbrella of the My Village Project. And we focus on 5 schools. So, they're at Ribault Middle, they're at George Washington Carver, SP Livingston, Become Academy. So, I mean, we have entities doing that right now as we speak in regards to creating wealth, giving that wealth, a level of wealth to these Black agencies as we do work in our community. So that is coming together. It just doesn't get as much publicity, but that's happening under the office of Ronnie King. So maybe he could be a future guest to talk about that in more detail. But we are moving and evolving to that, because you're absolutely right. The time is now. The time is now that we got to do more in our community, working together to save the lives of our children. They deserve it. And I refuse to sit here and say that all of our Black males, quite a few of our Black males are doing extremely well. They just don't get highlighted. And we just want to make sure we are highlighting those males that are out there doing the right thing, and we're patting them on the back, and we're telling them that we love them.
All right.
So in 2020, I'm sorry. In 2020, I just want to say this, and then Tyrone, you can follow up with this, because I was reading again and preparing for today. And in 2020, the Commission on the Social Status of Black Men and Boys Act was established within the United States Commission on Civil Rights, Office of the Staff Director. Anyway, so, and remarkably, Congresswoman Frederica Wilson, Democrat Florida, led by Senator Marco Rubio in the Senate, the bill was unanimously So I'm saying this to say, what have you all seen that's happened as a result of this commission that two of our elected officials here when the state of Florida started? Have you seen anything trickle this way to help support your efforts?
No,
Okay.
no, we haven't been able to tap into those dollars. We would love to, because I know we could do even more work. I mean, we can get even more support to brothers like Gerard Bell who are in the schools. I mean, the man is a one-man wrecking crew. I mean, he's at 5 elementary schools. He's at 5 high schools. He works with Elder Cotton from St. Paul Missionary Baptist Church to go to other 5 other elementary schools. I go with them to the high schools. I mean, we would love to expound on this and grow this even more. But in regards to sometimes tapping into funds, it's just sometimes very difficult to do so if you don't have a lobbyist.
Right.
And both those entities are out of South Florida, by the way, Ms. Turner.
Yeah,
that senator and that representative both are out of South Florida. I don't know what we've seen from our people here in North Florida in terms of.
But Dr. Kane, this is a United States Commission on Civil Rights. So although so this is not supposed to be a South Florida thing. This is enacted for the whole country.
And the key word there is not supposed to be. Tyrone, you look like you wanted to say.
Well, no, the one thing that I want to say, and it's something that I hear occasionally, and it's a bit skewed from where I grew up and how I grew up, is that I hear it seems like we're surprised that it doesn't get on the news. We're surprised that we don't get into funding. Well, my understanding is not new. That part of the equation is not new. So it is obvious that that's a part that we need to constantly work on, but the best bang for the effort still needs to be put into the programs like what you gentlemen are doing and other programs that you spoke of through, as Dr. Kane made his statement. We had a guest on once, and they said that there's always a lot of organizations to help any particular issue. The challenge is logistics. And that's what Dr. Kane is talking about. And it was good to, it was good to hear that you say that there is an organization that is corralling all of those thought processes together. One of the things we try to do here at Pause for the Truth is to bring light to a lot of issues. But it is important that I felt it important that we say, it is not something that we expect overnight to be reported. It is not something that we expect overnight for funds to come in on. Yet it doesn't lessen the value and the effort that need to be put in by all those others.
As well as those that are putting in those efforts. They need to be, identified and given kudos and congratulations for what they've done. And then, and some of the other people like ourselves can even need to step up and do more as well. I think a good...
Dr. Kane, may I add one thing? Dr. Kane?
Sure.
I think one thing that we don't ever want to lose sight of is, one thing that Brother Bell does and that Bishop Guns pushes us to do is creating this concept of wealth. If we want to control our narrative, we want to control our faith, we got to push the level of wealth within our community. We are consumers, but we're not creators. We got to train our young men. We got to train our young ladies to be creators, not workers, but creators. So it's no longer that concept of go to school and get a job. No, go to school and own a company. Go to school and own a business. Think about it like this. Why is it so easy for African Americans to get a loan for a house, get a loan for a car, get loan money for school, but we can't get money for a business?
Nope. And black
so
boys...
we got to change that concept somewhat where, you should be able to get a loan for a business just as fast as you can get a loan for a house, because that business becomes your avenue to build, create wealth, and more importantly, create legacy, something you can pass on to other generations. So That's some of the things that we're really trying to get the young men to understand that, and we're going to be actually implementing those things going into 2023, where we have these young men at 4 different schools identifying properties and in looking at purchasing a home and showing them how to fix that home up, right? And then selling that home to somebody within the community. Now, think about that for a second. You got young men, Black males, coming together under the direction of Gerard Bell, identifying a home, purchasing that home, fixing that home up, and then selling that home. That's real world application. That's something they'll never forget. They'll never forget how to drywall. They'll never forget how to do light electrical work. They'll never forget how to do light landscaping work. But we're going to show them under the help of other Black men how to do that stuff and how to flip a house. Now, they may not do that any other time in their lives, but if they at least know that they have discipline with the process, understand their purpose, and develop trust, there is nothing that can stop these young men. Nothing at all. And that's what we're preaching.
And you know what? I remember when, as females, we have girls who, one of my friends right now, her granddaughter, she's learned how to braid hair, just braids everybody hair, just so good at it. And I think the important part about that is to continue for her to nurture that skill in her and saying that, you should, take whatever professional certification she needs to do to open up her own shop, right? So beyond school, then she'll know that that's something that she can go in, because let's face it, not everyone wants to go to college. They just don't have the desire. They just can't wait till they finish high school. So I like that, giving them a skill or help to nurture a skill within them to say, hey, there are some other things you can do. And even I look at our communities there are so many hair supply stores, for example, that we contribute so much to, but we don't own them, right? So why is it then that we can't see? So I love what you all are doing in terms of nurturing, planting those seeds that those businesses that are in your neighborhood, you can own them one day. But the other piece of it is, like you say, though, if they go to banks or whatever and can't get the loans, but that's when we have to come together. When you talk about a village, I know the work that Rodney King does with the My Village Project and trying to give money as he gets money, right? And so anyway, this is a bigger picture. If you're just joining us, this is a big picture rather. If you're just joining us, we're talking about saving our sons with George Maxey and Gerard Bell from Operation Save Our Sons. And if their pastor is listening, Pastor John Guns, and I'm going to say it so I'll get in trouble, the not so tall man with the big voice, right? And if Dr. Gunn or Pastor Gunn is behind something, you best believe that he is going to be speaking forcefully, passionately, but right on time. I just love hearing him speak, by the way, and that is meant with all respect to him. Again, if you have any questions, dial 888-669-1280. And this is a conversation that we obviously are going to have to continue. So tell me, George, and I'll say Gerard, since it sounds like you're the man, Gerard, because George has said that more than once. So if you meet a young man tomorrow, you will just simply have a conversation with him and figure out what's going on with him and plug him into some programming that you do. Tell us how that works.
Yes, ma'am. So basically, I'm introduced to a young man through the administration of the school that they feel he can benefit from our services. And I have a one-on-one conversation with him. We talk about home life. We talk about, his siblings, his dreams, things that he wants to do, things he's doing now. Has he ever been arrested? How's his case going? Because that's one thing that we do, and I'll get back to it. If any of our young men that are in school and we're in that school and they find themselves in trouble and they have court dates and things like that, we show up to those things. We ask, let us know when you're due in court, and we will show up and we'll speak on behalf if the judge asks us to. But we always show support to them, no matter what they have going on. So back to that. After having a conversation with them, I really have to get them to understand, first of all, I'm a safe space. All right. I'm not going to divulge your name or anything like that. And unless you're talking about harming yourself or harming someone else, that what you say it stays with me. And honestly, because I am technically an employee of DJJ, by law I have to do that. I have to keep their confidence, and I take that very seriously. So once we have the conversation, I see where they are. I feel their heart. I know their heart. Then I go back to the administration and it's like, okay, I think he would benefit from this, this, and this. He may not necessarily benefit from our program because he is not an at-risk kid. He just may need some, some counseling. But he doesn't seem like he's going to, be arrested or do anything like that. He may just need some counseling and maybe some home services. So if he needs home services, that's when I loop George in, and George can plug in with the other services that we're in connection with.
So do you ever have any young men that are not involved in your efforts because they got in trouble, but simply maybe because they're just shy and not very outgoing? And or I remember one of my friends back in the day, her son was not getting in trouble. She just wanted him to have a mentor, a positive male in his life. Do you find that that's also an option, or are you sought out for that reason alone?
Yes, ma'am, we are. We actually do that in West Side and Jackson. All of those kids are not at-risk kids. We have some what we call high flyers in those classes, and what we do is we get them involved in other jobs and things like that. 100 Black Men has helped us with jobs and things of that nature, and George can speak a little more about that. But however, what we do also is we're having communications with trade schools. We're having communications with, CDLs, people that want to get their truck driver's license. So all those things, we're leading towards that. We just got to help them change their mindset, because you can want to do those things, but you can't keep doing what you're doing now in order to do those things. So it's all about helping them change their mindset.
Hey,
Thank
Tyrone.
you. Again, if you're chiming in, I'm sorry, Dr. Kane, if you're just joining us, you can dial in 888-669-1280. Dr. Kane, I saw your note popping up like, what's the dial-in number? Because Dr. Kane will tell you people are texting him like, what's that number? I need to call in and ask the question. Well, this is a very interesting conversation. I think the thing that I'd like for us to talk about, and Dr. Kane has alluded to it tonight, is the community is listening. I don't quite know how to get involved. You mentioned My Village Project. You mentioned the 100 Black Men. George is doing a shameful plug for his fraternity behind him, Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity. So there are a lot of organizations out there doing stuff. What are some, Dr. Kane is the president of the Northeast Florida Medical Society Foundation. How do you suggest that folks support your efforts? What can they do? I mean, do you have a volunteer base? What can people, and then the moms, like myself, I'm a female, obviously. I may not be one to typically be a part of your mentoring of males. However, some of your males may have sisters who you may need to connect with. So tell me how people can get involved in the last few minutes of our conversation.
Well, I mean, one of the things is somebody put it up there. The My Village Project is one way of getting involved with multiple organizations that you can be part of, because again, your child may not necessarily fit what we're doing, but your child needs some help, or you need some help. But to get involved with us specifically is, it is Operation OSOS national.org. So, that's something that you can directly join our organization, go to our website, sign up through us from that perspective. That would be a perfect way of identifying, I may need assistance. We have forms on there where you can sign your child up. We will get back to you within 24 to 48 hours, find out what the situation and circumstances is from that perspective. But again, our biggest thing is the need is great. Sometimes the need is so great. So what we've now doing is launching a campaign of trying to sign up more male volunteers. We're asking brothers, it's time to give back. Yes, you may have sons at home, but we got sons in these streets and we need your assistance. It just can't fall on 4 or 5 brothers trying to create a level of change. We need more brothers to be part of the process. So, we're asking brothers to, go on our site to sign up to be a volunteer. And a volunteer doesn't always mean I'm going into school and mentoring a child. A volunteer may just be, I'm just showing up and being part of the process.
Mhm.
So those are some things that we're looking is trying to identify more males to be part of this process, because, it's one thing trying to get that money, Jocelyn, but it's another thing as just putting in a sweat equity. There's nothing wrong. We had over 44 male volunteers show up for us for our summit. We had 165 kids and we had 44 male volunteers. To me, that was powerful. When we had our church service, when Bishop wanted to do a church service to pray over the young men, for the end of the school year, going into the summer, he always likes to do something for the men prior to going to summer. We had 70 some odd young men that came out to get prayed on. We can never forget about the spirituality behind this. Bishop Guns is a follower of Christ. And he teaches us that, we got to be strong in it, but we also got to preach that gospel, because we got to lean on that gospel at different times of our lives. So those things all become part of this network. And we're not just here to publicize what we do. We want to publicize what everybody does, because, again, we're here to save our children.
Save Our Sons is the topic for tonight's show. Go ahead, Gerard.
We can't underestimate how important it is to give also. On our website that was just posted, there is a donation button. Utilize it. I mean, this work is not cheap. And the more we have, the more we can do, honestly. And we don't want to have to beg the city for funds. We want our own people to be able to give to us so we can take care of our sons. We don't have to beg the city, and then they don't do what they say they're going to do and things of that nature. We don't want to find ourselves scrambling. We want to be able to continue to do the work and do it at a level of excellence that not only our boys deserve, but our bishop demands.
And one of the things that we'll rally together. Sadly, mm-hmm. If a child is shot, everybody will show up and talk about, my child was a good kid or whatever, and very well they may be. However, what I think you're saying, which is important, we have to show up for our children as a community, not just when something bad happens. And we're in the spirit of giving. It's the end of the year. Don't give all your money to the retailers on Black Friday. Give your money, consider giving your money to the numerous nonprofit organizations like Operation Save Our Sons, My Village Project, and others that are doing great things for families. These people come to work every day. They have their own families, but they volunteer and do things to try to save other children in our community who unfortunately might not have the resources, their families don't, in order to provide for them. We're nearing the end of the show. I know this is where we say, oh, but that's okay. We can have you all back. And we might even let George say something about that K-A-Psi thing. Because they, congratulations, by the way, to Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity for the groundbreaking of their new center near Rains High School. That's going to be a wonderful asset for that community. It's already been there, but they're going to expand. And one of Dr. Kane's, the Northeast Florida Medical Society members, it's named after and mentor Dr. Lord Jesus. What did you say? Dr. McIntosh. Gosh,
McIntosh, yeah.
I hope he's not listening, because I know who Dr. Mac is in this community. So we're thankful to all of your organizations. But at the end of the show, we talked about Operation Save Our Sons, and just in general, Save Our Sons, rally together as a community, get involved if you're not. Don't, as they say, if you're not a part of the solution, then you're a part of the problem. Get out of texting one another and posting on social media your disgust for things. Get a part of these organizations and in order to make a difference. As you're giving, the end of the year, make sure that you're contributing to our local organizations. If you don't know who to give to, as they said, here is ososnational.org and myvillageproject.org, as well as other organizations. But we always like to give our guests an opportunity to share their final thoughts regarding tonight's topic. So, George, I'm going to start with you. What are your final thoughts as we talk about saving our sons?
Well, one of the things is that, Bishop Guns has always taught us that, start giving back starts at home. So, he always pushes the males of the church to always give back. And that's the reason why I'm so proud to be part of Operation Save Our Sons, because, I have 3 boys. And I always think that what I'm doing now is just going to give favor to my sons and my grandsons in the future. So I just ask and I plead to individuals, Giving Tuesday is next week, and I believe in, let's be proactive and not reactive. Instead of us starting a GoFundMe to bury one of our boys, why don't you give money to us so we can keep our boys alive? I think it's so important that we need to start giving back now as a Black community. It starts with us. It starts at home, and we're going to get this done no matter what.
Amen. I can say it. Amen. Gerard, what are your final thoughts regarding saving our sons?
First and foremost, thank you for having us. This is a much needed subject and topic that needs to be spoken about. So thank you for having us, and we'll be more than happy to come back. It starts at home, as George said, and it starts early. Get in while they're in elementary school, because that's where we are now. That's where it starts, in elementary school. They don't just all of a sudden become, as we call them, thugs and things of that nature. They start as a young boy that needs to feel safe, and then something happens. So join with us, be with us, pray with us, because this work is heavy. It's not light. You have no idea how many nights I come home and I'm exhausted just from hearing stories. So pray for me as I do this work, because it's not easy. Giving Tuesday is on Tuesday. Donate. It doesn't hurt. Nothing is too small. Just give, so that we feel the love of our community as we love on our boys. Thank you.
Thank you. And the behind the scenes guy, he had that up on the screen, by the way, Tyrone, behind the scenes guy. Tyrone only pops up, by the way. He's our technology expert, but when he gets passionate about something, he'll pop in and just has to chime in. Tyrone, what are your final thoughts regarding saving our sons? You're muted, Tyrone.
You muted yourself.
I said I just want to. I just want to start off by thanking these gentlemen for coming on and giving us this information. It's extremely important, and I think it's so important that the gist of what they're saying is that it requires everyone to get involved. They're not sitting back waiting on the media or someone else to do it. They're doing it themselves. And what they're asking is a simple request, and that is that each of us do the same thing. For years and for a long time, we've always known that it takes a village. But over time, our village has slowly disintegrated, deteriorated. But here's the secret. It's happened before. And we rebuild our village. And we rebuild it with strength and courage and power that makes us who we are. So take the time to get involved. And if you're not getting involved, ask someone else to get involved. It is amazing how many times I did not know about something, someone brought it to my attention, and then I got involved. And then I come back and ask them, I didn't see you. They say, well, I ain't involved. You know what I'm saying? So
but they did a good job getting you involved.
Absolutely. It's a simple gesture. The power was in them mentioning it to me. I got involved not because they mentioned it, but because I felt it was a good cause. And you don't know how many people will do the same thing. And so that's what I say to all of us. Let's reach out to everyone we know, everyone we have an opportunity to exchange with, and send them to this website. At the very least, they can donate their money. but and you never know what they're going to do. So that's where we're called to respond, and that's what I have.
Thank you, Tyrone. Dr. Kane, what are your final thoughts for tonight's topic, saving our sons?
Yeah, I just kind of want to make sure people remember how hard it is for young Black men to get out of poverty, particularly if they're in poverty already, and trying to get up out of poverty is not the easiest thing. As you stated before, not everyone is designed to go to college or wants to be in college, or have that desire or destiny to be in college. What we have to remember is, for the longest, Black businesses were not one that were run by college graduates. Okay, they were run by mom and pop, as we, whether it was your mom, your pop, or somebody else's mom and pop, they ran those businesses and were very successful in their endeavor within the community. And so we have to get back to teaching our kids these skills. Not everybody's going to college, but give them a skill set and let them go ahead, as these gentlemen have said this evening, let them go ahead and utilize that skill set so that they can get themselves out of poverty and stay out of poverty, if that is the case from the beginning. One last thing is, and not to try to sound snide, but that child you saved from that gang or the gang activity may be the one that allows you to save your own child if you got kids, because you may run into the wrong Ray or whomever, and if we had to intervene, maybe Ray wouldn't have been there to hurt your child or your nephew or niece or whomever it may be. So it is, as you said, a community. It is a village, and everything that happens in the village can, a lot of things that happen in the village can affect others in the village. So let's try to get that taken care of, so that we're not looked upon as being Jacksonville's trouble side of town, the north side of town. We and I work in there, so I can speak from experience. We want to be viewed as a community that brings up positive things in our villages.
Thank you, Dr. Kane. Thank you, Tyrone. And thank you to our special guests, George Maxey and Gerard Bell with Operation Save Our Sons. Thank you for your tireless efforts to save our sons, to help make our community a better place for all, to have a conversation and to encourage young people, to give them hope is just unfathomable in this day and age. That young people don't see themselves living beyond their 20s. That's unheard of, right? So anything that we can do collectively to help that, we obviously as a community want to do it. Get from behind your computer and your online screen name and get involved in these community-based organizations that are trying to work with families. These guys, they have their own full-time jobs. They come home, maybe grab a bite to eat and go back out in the community because it's a passion, it's a mission for them. So get involved. Thank you again. Next week, we're going to switch gears on you and talk about the ladies. Yes, I did my plug. I told Dr. Kane, we're going to talk about men this week, but we're also going to redirect and talk about the real people who run the household. And those are women, right? So tune in next week. I'm joking, right? Tune in next week for Pause for the Truth. And if this is your first time, just think, Dr. Kane, Tyrone, and I just came together a couple of years ago and said we wanted to create a venue to have topics that are relevant to help enhance the lives of people. We wanted to tell the stories of what's really going on. And that's what we hope to do here on Pause for the Truth. Have a happy Thanksgiving. If you have not gotten your COVID vaccines, please go and do so, and or booster, get your flu shot, because despite what the media is telling you, people are still getting sick and dying from both. Take care.
Safe travels, all those that are traveling.
Take
Safe
care.
travels.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night, y'all. Happy Thanksgiving.